Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill and Ammon Bogus Hangout. Uh, we had a couple of additional guests, but Zara's here. Zara, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sarah Altair, and I write semantic copy for websites.
Okay, and the other two, we'll have them introduce themselves or not, depending on when they get back. So what is semantic copy for websites?
It's writing for the business, paying attention to current SEO strategies. So I don't do the technical SEO,
Right.
but do try to incorporate as much as I can of structure and organization and connecting with clients at their level.
So does that involve entity information?
Yes, it does.
So you try to explain different aspects of entities that might be on a page, including the business.
Correct. And I just finished watching David Amerlin's link building. He did a YouTube video of his slide presentation at SMX.
SMXL in Milan.
Yes.
Last week. Yeah.
Yeah, he did sort of recreated it with on YouTube, and it was pretty amazing, and something that I've been talking to clients about, which is connecting content with empathy for who's there on the page, who's connecting, which, you know, for a business is your client, you know, your future client, and what it is that helps them to understand whatever it is that you do, whether it's products or services, that it connects with their needs at an emotional level. You know, he ends the presentation talking about empathy, and empathy is the next step in the client taking action.
So you want to explain why people should trust you?
Well, Bill, then that no. Well, actually, yes, but no, because if you say, trust me, whoa, that's all red flags all over the place, you know. But it's like conveying the information that allows the reader to see how this product, service, whatever it is, connects with them.
If you link to authoritative sources of information about the entity.
Authoritative sources of information. Exactly. Correct. Yeah. Right. Hey, Steve.
Hello, everybody.
John?
All quiet on the front there. Everything restoring to normal.
Slowly. But yeah, little elbow injuries kept me off the chainsaw, so that's a good thing.
So I'll continue on with an example, Bill.
Yeah.
So I have a client with an NDA agreement, so I just have to do in vague terms, but they work with LED lights for first responders. And so it's definitely a retail site, but we're going through and redoing all of the category descriptions with all of those things I just mentioned in mind, to connect to them as primary users and what these individual products will do to help them Does that make sense? Rather than just saying we have this and we have that.
Right. So Terry, you shared with us some articles this morning.
Yep.
You can put some of these on the in the comments for the YouTube channel. Anything you might want to say about them? This Possum 2 update, for instance. I'm going to copy that.
Put it on YouTube.
Yeah, there's a private chat that we see, and there's a comment stream here for YouTube
Okay.
that you can post things to. So I was going to put, just put the Possum 2 one there. I'll put the other two. So reference Dave provided. It's about BERT and TensorFlow.
Yep. Quite a lot like the quite a bit like what we talked about last week with Word2Vec. Same type of article.
And there's an article you're sharing about mobile first indexing. There are a number of sites that possibly have been hit by that recently that maybe lost some rankings or saw some changes.
Yeah, it seemed to be a tightening of the location of the user. There was other stuff, as usual, reviews was part of, a factor and
The
quickly.
mobile first one.
Pardon me?
I asked about the mobile first.
Oh, shit. Okay. My bad. My bad. The thing to remember there is whatever is your mobile page is going to rank for is what is used to rank your desktop page now, too. So they don't really look at the desktop page.
So we had the New York Times announce a couple of weeks ago that they'd seen a sudden loss in traffic, and they were suspicious that it might be related to BERT because BERT just came out.
No, it's probably because
and somebody suggested on Twitter that it was more likely that they had just started getting mobile first indexing on the website, and they checked.
Yep.
It seems like that's what happened.
And I can tell you from experience, the CMSs that those type of places use are utter nonsense.
They're not optimized.
Not very good. Not very good for anything, especially mobile, I would assume.
I'm just asking because I'm trying to envision what might cause a site that ranks really well to all of a sudden rank poorly based on a change to mobile first indexing.
Okay, if you're using two indexes, two sites, a mobile site and a regular site, that will cause major. That's where they said most of the losses were sites like that.
Well, we didn't have a .m site over in New York Times.
Pardon me?
We didn't have a .m version of New York Times.
Right.
Right. There wasn't a mobile-only version of New York Times. Right. So,
okay. Anything that uses tabs would be affected some. And I would assume that if you're showing mobile content that is different than the regular page, that was an issue as well. It's not going to find the extra content that is on the desktop site.
Now,
So
it's-
say you had more information on the desktop site
Yeah.
than you did on the mobile site, it's only going to base your ranking for all on the mobile.
So isn't that a point of inconsistency from announcements from Google about the tab data and the hidden data, the accordion type data? Didn't they tell us originally about a year ago that content that was in
Right. Okay. I know what you're.
accordion or tabs
Right.
that was in getting indexed for mobile would continue to get indexed for desktop as well? So you have content behind the mobile, behind an accordion.
Oh, yeah, it sees that. That's okay.
Okay, it should see that.
Right. It does see it.
It's not lost when you switch over to mobile first indexing.
That's what I read in the article. I just read it quickly before we were on here, and that's the way it seemed to me. Perhaps I'm wrong.
That's the way that Google told us it was going to be a year ago. But
Was that stuff behind tabs wouldn't be seen?
that the stuff behind tabs would be seen.
Right. It would be seen.
Okay, beforehand, when you would search for stuff hidden behind an accordion or a tab, or behind an accordion, you would like grab a string of text and put quotation marks around it and search for it. That wasn't appearing in Google's search results.
I found that it was.
A year ago or so, it wasn't.
Oh, I can only speak to recently. I know that I checked that almost monthly when
Right.
I was maintaining sites. I check it whenever I made a new page. I would run it through to see what was rendering and what wasn't.
Yeah, that content had been appearing on mobile sites.
And one of the things that it did talk about in Jennifer's post was content that was behind a tab on on like a non-mobile site.
Yeah.
Was weighted differently than content that wasn't in a tab. However, in mobile, it's not discounted.
Okay, so that was supposed to be one of the benefits of mobile first indexing. It's not something that would cause a loss of traffic.
I suppose.
Because your content would still be getting the same weight, regardless of whether it was behind the tab.
If you were using schema,
Yeah.
you had to redo that, was one of the things, and removed it from your mobile, but had it on your website.
Yeah.
That wouldn't, you'd lose your rich snippets and stuff. So that could cause them a problem.
But on a site where it's responsive, where the desktop and the mobile pages are exactly the same, that wouldn't be an issue, would it?
No. If they were exactly the same, there shouldn't be any change. In fact, there probably should be better, because if you had tabs, it would be treated all the same rather than discounted.
Right.
But
Bill,
just to be clear,
yeah,
anything I'm saying, read the article, because I read it quickly before we came on here to,
Okay, well, we've introduced some of the issues involved.
Yes. And that article is very, very detailed as usual. And Jennifer has contacts at Google, so she was able to get why they changed things, etc. Very interesting article. I skimmed through it. If I had known you were going to grill me, I would have read it a little better.
Okay.
Or it would have helped if you had read it too.
Yeah.
I kind of hoped on some of these you had, but I guess you were busy with the trip to Italy and everything.
Yeah, it took up a little bit of my time.
Yeah.
I'm
These
about a
differences
blog post
between-
behind right now.
All these differences between mockup not justify, not just behind, rather than separate sites.
That's always been the right way to do it. And
Well,
not
yeah.
even responsive. Well, responsive designer using Bootstrap, which is basically a responsive design, right?
Most of the clients we've worked with, that's been
Going
one of
with
the first things we tackled, making sure that they had responsive design. They didn't have separate mobile and desktop sites.
Yeah. Responsive is a subjective word too, because a lot of sites a lot of themes that say they're responsive,
Yeah.
don't do it very well. Results in very slow loading sites.
Can't believe.
Right? Like a lot of them take a full size, like they put giant pictures on the front, like you have to make your picture like 1600 wide to make it fit properly, right? For your thing. And then when they go to shrink that, instead of using a separate picture, they use the big picture and just resize it using the height and width, right?
Yeah.
It's still downloading that big picture, even if it might only be a 200 by 300 picture. So those aren't what I would call responsive design. I'd call them a good attempt at responsive.
Well, when I say responsive,
design.
I'm just talking about the little size to a different viewport. You know,
Right.
standard,
So-
you know, but say again, Bill?
I had a unrelated question, somewhat related question. I'll bring it up. There was a discussion on Twitter about hamburger menus and people using hamburger menus on desktop versions of sites.
Bullshit.
You don't like the idea?
Yep.
No.
No, I don't.
Look, you got to assume
Some people
when
were
I
saying-
did
Some
design,
people were saying that it's a good idea. And
why?
They couldn't justify it. They couldn't explain. So
Yeah.
they said there are enough sites that are
Why would it be?
often visited sites that are highly ranking sites that are using hamburger menus. So here's where the argument falls apart. So that must mean that there's some benefit to using the hamburger menus.
Oh, no, that doesn't.
It's
That's,
not much of an argument.
that's a logical fallacy.
It's
Whether it's a
Related
hamburger
theories.
menu or it's written out, Google still can read the links.
So if you bother to look up the UX research that exists on the web from places like Nelson Norman Group, they say you lose all discovery. You have people visiting sites and not going in as far on those sites and discovering content that they could find if there was an actual visible navigational menu.
That's
Correct.
why I don't like hamburger menus.
Well-
I assume all users have
Yeah.
the attention span of the gnat. Okay,
That's
that's
just
why you have to give them directions to do anything. That's how it best works.
Well,
So if you hide it, they don't know what that hamburger is, and they're probably afraid to click it because they don't know what it is.
you're all also making use addition see your ask you click one more time see if you have a contact page. You know, not
Yeah.
to do it to see, oh. Now I can do on a mobile, sure.
The taco ISP not working out for you today, Doc.
Or what?
I heard about every third or fourth
Yeah,
word.
your words drop.
It's selectively choosing which words you give us.
Asinine. It only picked the good ones. So
It's sort of like a hamburger menu. It fails for things like back button too. It doesn't work well with that, and it makes it difficult to refine things that you've already seen.
Correct.
oh, I hate that when people disable the back button. That's like, yeah, let's take all the functionality out of the browser. Okay, like things are put there for a reason. And
Yeah,
if you think it's going to help you sell something by trapping me on your page instead of going to the search engine again, how stupid do you think the user is? I mean, Google's probably his homepage. So he's just going to go home and redo the search and not click you next time.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's why it makes sense for an SEO to learn some
And
UX.
yeah, and Bill, I can tell you, I had an ISP here in Canada
Yeah.
that had a hamburger menu, and the thing annoyed the hell out of me. I'm no longer there, by the way. Not because of the hamburger menu, but just I don't need those services anymore.
Yeah.
Mm.
But even then, it was still annoying.
The back button, the absence is very annoying. I just encountered that
That's
yesterday.
just stupidity.
It is. It's just stupidity. But to go with mobile, which I've been working on a website for, I don't know, think we've been doing this almost 2 years now, and things are coming together from theory to reality. And one of the things we did Sunday was go through the website page by page on the mobile device. What does it really look like on a mobile device? Because when you're working on it, it's on the big screen on your computer, and because we know what everything is, it's very different than recreating the user experience on a mobile device. And so we're going through like page by page. Does this work? Does this work? Should this be above or below? What do we want them to see first? All that sort of thing, because I really believe that user experience is so important. It's just so important, especially when somebody first comes to your website.
Yeah.
That they are able to find things, why the hamburger menu doesn't work, blah, blah. That they are able to see who you are as a business, and that they can find the things that meet their needs or could meet their needs. So that user experience is just really important, because my 8-year-old granddaughter bops around on she actually has her own phone now, and she does everything, and people are used to using mobile devices. It's not like a gimmick. It hasn't been a gimmick for years. So mobile access is absolutely crucial in users discovering what you want them to find on your website.
Do you have
I
an
think,
iPhone?
and it's like basic logic. It's like go here, then go here, then go here, then go here. And if
Sarah,
you don't have that, or even on a page, if the layout isn't a logical sequence, and you have to go here, and then the thing that you want is down here, but then you have to go back up for this, that's no good. It's just no good.
Sarah, do you have an iPhone or an Android phone?
I have an Android.
Okay, so that was a trick question.
Okay, why?
Apple doesn't like hamburger menus. They tell people not to use hamburger menus in their apps for Mac, for iOS.
Every responsive site uses hamburger menus.
Except ones built for Apples, like iTunes. It used to have hamburger menus. It no longer does.
Oh,
YouTube got rid of hamburger menus too.
I used an emulator that did iPhone, and the biggest difference I saw was the screen surface is much smaller than anyone would anticipate.
If you look up the Apple usability guidelines they published within the past 2 years or so, it says it says no hamburger menus.
Okay, so that would mean you would have to write a different solution for, like, most of the menus that you put in the top of a website.
Yeah.
If you didn't use a hamburger menu, would fill the page.
You do something else.
You do something else.
Oh, can you use it? Oh, I guess you'd have to do it in a drop down, which is essentially what a hamburger menu is.
Yeah. But
Right, but the problem with the hamburger menu, and I can understand this, is that it doesn't tell you anything. It's a line.
So the top level menu at YouTube now is like 3 items. So it's not a hamburger, but it's not some full list of things.
Yeah, drop downs aren't really good for links either. So that would be a crappy user experience, but you would expect that from Apple.
I'm not sure. But YouTube is an Apple. So
I'm an Apple hater, so
Yeah.
I hate Apple the way Unix hates Microsoft.
I'm not sure Unix hates Microsoft as much as they used
Yeah,
to.
you talk to people that are administrators, and yeah, mainly because they can't do Windows very well. Because they try and do it like Unix, and it's not nowhere near the same.
Am I sounding any?
So I have a question for you guys.
That's much better, Doc.
Because I'm on an iPhone,
Yeah.
and just going to Apple.
Not so well now. Rose right up.
Apple.com has well, you can't see it with that thing. Has a hamburger menu on Apple.com.
There you go.
So they say in their usability guidelines not to use hamburger menus, and they have a hamburger menu on the mobile version of Apple.com.
That's why you take all that stuff with a grain of salt. Microsoft used to say web config was the worst thing to use, right? On a website. If replace hit access, basically. However, it was included in every site with the download. So when you created a site, it automatically put web.config in the root. what they say isn't always what they do.
But we were talking about hamburger menus on not mobile devices, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. It being
Right.
very annoying. Because most people, the first thing they do when they come into a website, they look at the links across the top.
That's true.
Because it's a standard user experience type thing to be able to know where you're at, where you can go, where you've been.
And that was the
Like
only
people-
smart thing.
navigation.
That was the only smart thing that Nielsen ever said, was that the more we standardize the GUI on websites, the better it will be. However, he was taking it far where every website should have the GUI on the right-hand side and blah, 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 blah. Basically making it a lot more like how they write software GUIs.
If you haven't clicked on the link yet, it's blue. If you click on it, it turns red.
Yep. How many people use that these days?
Not too many.
No way. You know, most web designers would think it, crazy to have blue links. I mean, Jesus, that'll ruin my website. The fact that it makes those links stand out on the page, they don't really consider that,
Yeah.
As long as it looks pretty for them, who cares what the users think?
Yes, sometimes there's a little bit overdoing it when you come to standards, huh?
There's a nice medium.
Yeah.
But, when every website has their links across the top, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it's an advantage to hide those?
Not
Because
to,
most people would wonder how they navigate your website.
yeah,
Bill.
not put some hamburger menu on your web page. I remember the first desktop version of a web page I came across with a hamburger menu. I had no idea where to go.
That happened to me too. I was like, where?
Yep.
First time I saw it, right, was on this ISP's site. I looked at it, thought, oh, they fucked up the coding. And I clicked it, and there was a big menu drop down. Like every link on the site was on that drop down hamburger.
Article I came across, it was justifying the use of hamburger menus on desktop pages. Said, well, if you're over 50, you'll have no idea what it is. But if you're younger than that, it'll be obvious.
That's semi-true.
That's not a good argument.
No, it's not.
Nope. But a lot of people, if you did most of your surfing on a phone, where that is almost always the case, that a hamburger menu is used, you're going to know that, oh, they do that here too. Just click it. Again, that's like the software GUI being familiar to you. Another thing to consider, and I don't think a lot of people do, that there's a lot more people that have no internet access, and the phone is their only way
That's
to
right.
access the internet. We're talking like continents.
So hamburger menus were started in like 1963, and accounting software, and they were used on that and really nowhere else up until people started using them for mobile sites.
Yeah, pretty big feature of Excel too.
Yeah. Excel, really?
Oh, I was thinking the tabs in the bottom, where you could have multiple tables on the same thing,
Yeah.
for pivots and stuff like that.
So was there a sudden upgrade to Google in the past week or so? I've been seeing people report on it. People like Barry Schwartz. So people have been saying that it hasn't taken effect internationally on non-USA sites.
Yeah. You know, something I was thinking about with BERT being bidirectional,
Yeah.
that'll make it easier for them to do languages that read right to left instead of left to right, right?
They've been saying they really haven't applied BERT to a lot of queries or languages outside of the US at this point so far.
Right.
So it's not running in Canada or UK?
I'm not sure. I think the limitation was other languages other than English.
Yeah. Because what I've found in the past is Canada's usually updated with the US.
And then UK and Australia and New Zealand.
Sometimes UK is a little bit less, little bit later.
Yeah.
Because there are some slight variations, more than between Canada and the US. Like we spell optimization the way Americans do, not like they do in the UK using the S, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
They used to.
how would that affect the algorithm?
Well,
You
if
would,
it's words and it recognizes optimization,
I
well,
see what
through
you're
the
saying.
word to
Okay.
vector that, it probably knows they're the same thing now. But in the past, it actually resulted in two different
so part of the
certs.
benefit of BERT is that you train it. It's a pre-training approach.
Pre-training.
Right.
Right.
So you use a source like the English language version of Wikipedia to do your training.
Yeah, that's what they use for BERT.
And it should be able to then work well with American English language versions of websites. And then you'd have to use a version of Wikipedia that had the British spellings.
But Wikipedia's in multiple languages, right?
Right. There are at least 40.
There you go. Again, making it an ideal training model, eh?
Yeah. Well, you do the pre-training in one version of language, and then you try to apply it to websites that are in that language.
Right.
You fix all the errors, make note of them,
But
and then try it in another language and see if
yeah,
you
and as I understand it, when you use that same
corpus.
information corpus, right?
Yeah.
And you use that with another corpus, it will find the new ones in the new corpus. It would learn new things from that.
Which is ideally what you want to
You want it to be dynamic.
Yeah.
Because then it just grows as the language grows and you find new pages.
No, it makes sense.
Pardon me?
So that makes sense.
Well, to me, adding context to word to vec, right, is like, that's got to be a faster way to compute rankings and everything as well.
Yeah. So there were a couple patents that came out before BERT came out, or before BERT was introduced as something Google was using, that talked about word embeddings using WordDirect and using semantic frames with those word embeddings to capture context, to distinguish between a bank that involves finances and a bank that's at the side of a river.
Right.
And those context details make a difference.
Yeah. And it's when you read that article that I posted that Dave gave the reference for, you'll find that it's pretty dynamic as a classifier as well, and just keeps training itself.
I sent Dave a link in a Google patent that recently came out that involves creating text annotations for images using neural nets, and it talked about adding context to those too.
Yeah, there's actually a demo you can download of doing images.
Really?
Yeah, and it was supplied by Google, I'm pretty sure. In that article, Bill,
Yeah.
there's like a list like this of the references that he used for it. So I'm sure you'll have a night's reading there.
I need to dig into things like the natural language API from Google and the vision search API. So that supposedly has some nice features. Like you can visit a page and look at the images on it and get a list of all the other places on the web where those images appear. Like in the reverse image search.
Well, on that article that I listed there, there's actually, Google has a JavaScript program that will do AI for you. It's called Tensor.
Yeah.
Yeah. It combines Tensor and BERT to give you results. That was a very interesting page. On top of the information that it gave about how BERT works,
Yeah.
was also the programming. You can actually use the programming on the page to do stuff like Google does. So in other words, analyze your pages. I'm sure that's what why Dave put the links up.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't talked to him. I would not be surprised. It's a browser add-on, as I understand it, and I won't put nothing on any browsers, not from Google anyhow. Never know how many backdoors there are. Just not very, might as well be given CIA access to your computer.
But they already have that.
Yeah, well, I don't want to make it any easier. Bill's shaking his head.
So you're sending them an RSVP or invitation. Welcome to my computer.
Well, if they were watching me, they'd be pretty bored because I maybe use the computer twice a week now.
Hmm. I know when my daughter first moved overseas and they had the listening devices for, overseas phone calls.
Yeah.
And I thought, God, they're going to be bored to death because we talk about food and kitties and, every once in a while a slam at Berlusconi. And and it actually, in the beginning, so this was when they moved there in 2002, I think, you could actually hear the connection come in. You don't hear that anymore.
You can hear
Just
listening in.
But the my understanding of the way that the listening went was there were like what we would call keywords. There were like trigger words that made in a conversation that would make them pay attention to the conversation. Otherwise, it just went on about which kitty fountain did you get? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that there were trigger words that made them actually pay attention to those phone conversations. I don't know how it works now. I've just given up. Our conversations are pretty innocuous. But it's that same kind of thinking on a higher level, where a word is in context and a word is in relationship to other words within the content.
Yeah, Bert's supposed to be able to understand the context of word usage, the word senses much better.
Right, that is my understanding of it. That is
bi-directional too.
Yeah, that is actually able to make those distinctions.
Bi-directional in that you can remove the last couple of words from a sentence. It can guess what those words might be. You can also remove the first couple of words from a sentence.
Meaning it goes two before two. I'm not sure if it's 2 or 3 words, right?
Right.
And then it goes the 2 or 3 after the word as well. So it, instead of just going one way, it's going the other way as well.
Yeah.
So it'd be both sides of the word would be covered. So in the examples, they used bank, like you said, right? And because account came after bank, right?
Yeah.
It knew that that was different bank than the one that was the river bank.
Yeah.
Because it got, in the past, it wouldn't get the words after the embedded word. It would only get the words in front of it. Now it also gets the words after it. And it can take 2 sentences as well and compare those.
So it understands context in terms of co-occurrence of words. How
Right.
often words tend to appear frequently together.
And the orders too.
And
Because as we know, the order that the words come in can make a big difference, right? So being bi-directional,
yeah,
it makes it a lot more accurate. It also breaks it down into sentences and can tell a paragraph and all that other stuff too.
So when
Did they do that in the past?
when it's looking at 1,000-word article, say, or a long 1,000-word page, it takes everything on that page and it interrelates all of those things. Am I correct?
You'll see the word pipeline related to natural language processing often.
Okay.
Pipeline means a small task. So natural language processing is a series of small tasks taken together.
Okay.
So one of the tasks is understanding the part of speech that a word might be. Is it a noun? Is it a verb? Is it an adjective?
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the stage of what it does when it's processing natural language. Another step might be entity recognition. It might start looking for all the nouns and say, what is it exactly it's talking about when it's talking about Ohio?
Oh, another important thing is in the past, stop words were
Yeah.
not included. Now they are.
Yes, I read that the other day.
What do you mean they were not included?
They just skipped those words.
Okay, so there are some meaningful stop words like to be or not to be, which
Right.
in old version of treating stop words would mean absolutely nothing because they're all stop words.
Correct.
But
But in
now
the
it
new- in the
actually
new way,
looks at.
To be or not to be is a famous quote from a well-known play.
But also, those stop words can also help identify different entities.
So when someone searches for The Matrix, they're talking about a movie. They're not talking about something involving math,
Correct.
involving matrices.
What I mainly got from it is you take word to vec, right?
Yeah.
Word to vectors, and this is the next step. They took that and now do both ways and can add context. So if you had a heading, right, and then a paragraph under it, it looks at all of that. In other words, the heading in context to the. So in my opinion, now using proper document structure on a site could mean a lot more. Or using
if we want to relate it quickly to Hummingbird and then RankBrain, there's an easy way to do that. Hummingbird is looking at the context of words taken together. Words are adjacent to each other.
Mm-hmm.
right.
RankBrain is looking at the context of all the words in a query. BERT is looking at the context of all the words that may be on a page. It's much broader,
Looking at a bigger,
part of the picture. Yeah.
right.
So
Whereas
Terry,
the
let's
others
go
are
back-
looking
go
at
back
very
to the
small
page.
pieces.
Page has a header, and then there's subheadings for the different sections on the page with paragraphs underneath each subheading. With BERT, it's the whole banana, right?
The subheadings would still add context.
Correct. One would hope.
Well, it would.
Okay.
So something like RankBrain, you know that when someone searches for New York Times puzzle, they're most likely looking for a crossword puzzle. And it's because RankBrain can look through query logs and look for that New York Times puzzle and say that's usually when people are looking for crosswords.
Wouldn't it try and put New York Times first since that was in the query?
New York Times crossword puzzles.
So, but wouldn't New York Times would be included in that as well?
It's
right?
trying to understand the context of the words and what potentially might be missing.
Okay.
It's trying to rewrite the query to make it less ambiguous.
Right. Okay.
And you can use BERT with queries as well as using BERT to understand the content on a page.
So BERT interprets queries to get the fullest meaning, as it were. Is that correct?
It can. That's one potential use.
Many
It
potential
tries to
uses.
understand the intent and the specific meanings, the context. When you have words that have multiple meanings, it tries to understand which one
Okay.
means.
So back to that SEO contest, that page would not work as well as it did for word to vec, correct? Because it has no context, just lorem ipsum.
What that page tried to do I've never looked at the page. I understand they found phrases or related phrases under a process like phrase-based indexing. So they built semantic topic models on those pages. And because it had the right related phrases on it that stood for certain query terms, it ranked for those query terms.
Right. But when you add context to that same thing, for me, right, Bill, what that basically showed, right, was that as long as you had those proper topics in there, the context that those topics were in did not really matter that much. With BERT, it would.
If you write a page that's about the President of the United States, you put the related phrases on that page, even though the majority of the page might be lorem ipsum type language, but you put phrases like Oval Office, Secretary of State, veto, executive order.
Right.
Those predict, you can create a semantic topic model that predict that page is about President of the United States. And it can rank for that.
Which is basically what Answerly did, right?
I don't know what Answerly is.
It's a program that generated topics based on keywords.
Right. So the phrase-based indexing, there were like 20 different patents that describe how it works. One of them was about an inverted phrase index, like an inverted word index that Google's most likely using to identify which words appear on which pages. So they've created a index that says which phrases appear on which pages that rank for specific words. So if you have like the biography of the president, again, you have phrases that say these are commonly occurring phrases on pages about the President of the United States, executive order, Oval Office, Secretary of State.
Right.
Yeah.
My point was that now if you could beat that page doing the exact same thing by just adding a little context to those topics.
Well, that approach really doesn't care about context. Phrase-based indexing. So context really doesn't matter to the people who are doing the Houston rhinoplasty site or whatever town it was in Texas, because they were using a completely different approach, different algorithm. You know, processing language on that page wasn't really something that was helpful for it. BERT wouldn't work with that page. So it would run across lorem ipsum and say, okay, this is the fake gibberish that people put on websites when they're still designing the sites. But we're at the top of the hour.
Whoa, that went fast.
So does anybody have anything to add, anything in closing?
No, I'm going to read the article Terry listed.
Steve, you haven't said anything all day.
It's been a quiet day.
Oh,
I got to chew on authorized Google AdWords rep for about 10 minutes, so that was fun.
Oh, that made your day, I bet.
It usually does. When I question their life choices that led them to being in that position.
God, Steve.
Oh, Bill, your information from the last seminar you did.
Yeah.
Any chance of seeing your deck or anything?
I put them on SlideShare. Yeah.
Oh, did you? On
Yeah.
SlideShare?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can,
That's on keyword research, right?
one of them is, yeah.
Yeah, drop the link in there and I'll include it in my page. And I want to read that.
I thought it was interesting what David did was he sort of did a recap of his slides. I don't think it was as long as his official presentation, but he did go through the slides and touch on all the points of his presentation, which I thought was really wonderful for those of us who weren't in Milano. So that was great.
So here's one I did on keywords.
That was the one I was interested in.
YouTube.
Keyword School.
Yeah, I was reminded by the topic of the first real big keyword project I worked on, and it was for a school. So I took some of the things I learned from doing that, and I built on them. Let me put the other one. And the other one was on knowledge graphs.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I didn't make a video, Sarah, but that's not a bad idea. I was thinking about doing blog posts for them.
I just thought it was an interesting way to do it. I haven't seen anybody I've seen a lot of recordings of somebody's presentation at an event, but I hadn't seen anyone actually take that presentation and just kind of redo it on a video so it lives on YouTube, which I thought was really nice.
I like the idea.
You get the essence of it. You don't get the Q&A part of being at the live event, but you do get the essence of the presentation. But that is the same also on SlideShare. You know, when you go to the slides on SlideShare, that's the only part you get of that presentation.
It's possible that you don't always capture all the words or all the concepts on your slides that you say in the presentation itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of times I'll save the takeaways for the vocal part of my presentation. I won't necessarily put bullet lists on slides.
Right.
What the conclusions are. I think sometimes it's helpful to do that, and maybe I should do it more. But
well, I think I don't know. We're diverging into slide presentations and stuff, but if you're doing a live presentation, a slide with a bullet list is kind of a snorer. Yeah. But if it's somewhere living as a slide presentation and the only thing you have is that, then a slide with the bullet points makes sense.
Yeah. So it depends on the context.
It depends on the context, exactly.
Mhm. All right, well, we're going to close down for now. We're going to thank you, everybody, for joining us
Thank you.
this week.
Ciao.